Aphelios is a weird champion. His win rate is one of the worst in the game, his abilities are highly unique, and many League of Legends players tend to overcomplicate things when playing him. When you, however, only focus on the things that are truly important and ignore all the shenanigans, Aphelios is actually an extremely potent solo queue pick. You might be surprised that the Spanish pro player Flakked, who is arguably one of the, if not the best Aphelios player in the world, is keeping things surprisingly simple with Aphelios. Focusing on fundamentals instead of losing himself in obscure mechanics yielded him crazy results, reaching Challenger in solo queue with more than 1000 LP, and in this video I will show you exactly how he does it so you can too play Aphelios to his full potential. And Flakked's unique playstyle is not only reflected by his in-game decision-making, but also by his unusual item choices. The overwhelming majority of Aphelios players opt for a Gale Force build, further adding complexity to Aphelios' kit with their mythic item's active effect, but Flakked's item build is much simpler to play and also more consistent as a result. However, let's first address the elephant in the room, which of course is Aphelios' unique champion design with his countless intricate weapon combinations. How can you simplify playing such a complex champion to a point where you can no longer mess up? Yes, there are 5 different weapons with unique spells and auto-attacks, and they also interact with each other, but at the end of the day, Aphelios is still a basic marksman who right-clicks his enemies for massive damage. There are certain weapon combinations you want to play around, but even in situations where you don't have access to them, you can still just kite with your basic attacks and use the 2 spells you currently have access to. The only mantra you need to keep in mind is the one every Aphelios player knows anyway. Red-white, let's fight. These 2 weapons have by far the best synergy with each other, since you can stack up your chakrams with your red Q spell and then deal massive damage with white auto attacks. Whenever you have these 2 available, you should be looking for a fight. The combo is so strong in fact that even if you mess up your optimal weapon rotations, you should simply hold on to either of them as long as it takes until you cycle to the other. It is the only weapon combo that is truly a tier above the rest, so relying on auto attacks and basic Q casts without any special synergy in the meantime is 100% viable. One big reason why this works so well is Flakked's item build. As I've said, Flakked does not go for the standard Gale Force collector core, but instead opts for something different. He almost exclusively builds Kraken Slayer into Bloodthirster, increasing the value of his auto attacks as much as possible. With Kraken Slayer's true damage, you don't have to rely on perfect weapon synergies for DPS, and Bloodthirster further rewards you for auto-attacking by providing much needed safety. Gale Force is an important tool to get away from fed opponents and to prevent them from one-shotting you, but since you have Kraken, buying Gale Force is no longer an option. Therefore, addressing the issue with one of your legendary items instead is necessary for the strategy to be consistent enough. This core build turns Aphelios into a truly menacing DPS machine, allowing you to make aggressive plays even with rather unconventional weapon setups. In the heat of the moment, it is very easy to mess up your ammunition management, so relying on weapon synergies instead of auto attacks will always be an inconsistent strategy at its core. I firmly believe that this issue is the root cause of Aphelios' overall bad solo queue performance, but Flakked's core items fix this issue perfectly. Of course, the power fantasy is always there, and sometimes the stars will align and you can teamfight with a perfect teamfighting weapon combination. And while getting that perfect flamethrower ultimate against multiple enemies certainly makes for a nice dopamine rush, it will only happen every once in a while, so relying on stuff like that is inherently problematic. The only thing that might be even more problematic is the fact that you haven't clicked the subscribe button yet. Anyway, with the Kraken Slayer build, you still get all these payoffs for good weapon management, but your overall success with Aphelios will not depend on it. The simple reality of League of Legends is, the game doesn't wait for anyone. When a teamfight is about to start, you can't be like, guys, please wait, I don't have my proper weapon combo right now. It's do or die, and even with a complex champion like Aphelios, you always have to be ready to do what your team needs you to do. If your allies need you for DPS in a teamfight right now, you have to be ready to provide DPS in a teamfight right now. Always, no exceptions. With the Kraken Slayer core, you can do what a marksman is supposed to do at all times, even when you do not have access to your AoE damage with Flamethrower or a similarly powerful fighting setup. Keeping it simple for the sake of consistency is the name of the game, even for Aphelios. Of course, I cannot and will not deny that Flakked is mechanically a highly skilled player as well. And while situations like this won't speak for themselves, mechanical outplays are not the foundation of his success with Aphelios. Yes, Aphelios is a champion with a lot of depth, but good fundamentals trump everything else, and Flakked is demonstrating his fundamental game knowledge over and over again, consistently creating big advantages over time. Fancy outplays are certainly nice to see, but what makes Flakked's Aphelios so good is that he will always look for opportunities to set his team up for success before a fight even starts. If you've been following my channel for a while now, you've probably heard the catchphrase of "push past river Rome." Setting up the map favorably will put your team in win-win situations and the enemy in lose-lose situations. Before he even considers helping his team in the top lane, Flakked makes sure the mid lane minions are pushed way past the river to passively put pressure on the enemy base. And from here, he has all the options in the world. After quickly realizing that roaming towards the top side is too dangerous because of Fog of War, he instead takes all the free stuff in the enemy bot side jungle to put them further behind without even having to fight them. While the enemy is now forced to react to Aphelios' mid lane pressure, Flakked has already arrived in bot lane to again push past river and then roam. It is a stupidly strong strategy, and fundamentals like these should be the first things you implement in your own games. They are much more impactful than some obscure Aphelios weapon combos, and with a Kraken duelist build, you also don't need to worry about your current weapon setup before making your macro decisions. Instead, you will be able to make viable calls while still standing your ground, even when your red-white damage combo is currently not available. This way you will always be useful, making for a much more consistent Aphelios gameplay experience. The value of consistency can also be seen in Flakked's Aphelios rune page. His favorite setup is press the attack, overheal, legend bloodline and cutdown with absolute focus and gathering storm secondary, and his shards are attack speed, adaptive force and armor. Press the attack is Aphelios' best keystone for damage, and this is especially true for Flakked's Kraken Slayer build. PTA's base damage makes it quite valuable even early on, and the team-wide % damage increase on the affected target is highly relevant during the late game. Speaking of the late game, while Aphelios certainly prefers to have pressed the attack for damage, it won't do you any good if you simply get destroyed in lane before you can even begin to scale up. Therefore, Flakked will take fleet footwork instead if he finds himself in a tough early matchup. If you have to deal with a heavy poke support, or whenever you need to face off against a broken early lane combo like Lucian plus Nami for example, giving up press the attack's damage output in favor of fleet footwork's extra safety is 100% worth. Literally all of your minor runes provide heavy late game scaling in and of themselves, so consistently reaching the late game in the first place should be your #1 priority. Legend Bloodline and Gathering Storm are extremely valuable in longer games, and the same is true for Overheal and Cutdown, but we just have to talk about these two runes on Aphelios in particular. There is a reason why most players opt for Gale Force on this champion, and the reason is that he is really squishy and really easy to kill when out of position. However, Cutdown turns Aphelios' lack of health points into a nasty source of bonus damage. You hit enemies much harder than you should due to the difference in bulk, but the obvious downside is of course that you get punished for buying health yourself. But this is where Overheal comes into play. This rune effectively provides health in form of a shield, but since shields don't count for Cutdown's threshold, you are now harder to kill without compromising your damage potential. The same idea can be seen in the core build of Kraken Slayer and Bloodthirster, since Bloodthirster also increases your effective HP without actually reducing your bonus damage from Cutdown. This core build really does it all for Aphelios, and I've already talked about it quite a bit, but you of course still need to know which items you should get afterwards. The general rule of thumb here is that you mainly want to purchase attack damage items, since you already get plenty of attack speed from Boots and Kraken Slayer, and because Kraken Slayer's true damage further increases the more bonus attack damage you have. The only Zeal item I'd ever recommend is Mortar Reminder. In matchups where you need to have Grievous Wounds, it is absolutely indispensable, and it still comes with at least some attack damage in its stat profile. Your two strongest items, however, that you should always prioritize unless you have very good reasons not to, are Infinity Edge and Lord Dominic's Regards. Infinity Edge should be self-explanatory, since your two core items already provide 40% critical strike chance, perfectly setting up Infinity Edge's passive, which starts working at 60%. Lord Dominic's Regards is not merely a strong late-game damage item in general, but on Aphelios it is especially broken for the same reasons you take Cutdown. The Giant Slayer passive works exactly the same way, providing tons of value in addition to the late-game armor penetration. You only ever want to deviate from these two items if you need any of the others for their passive effects. For example, when the enemy team has a hyperfed AP assassin, buying more from Mortius III is a good way for you to stay relevant, since it allows you to survive their initial burst and then outduel them with your strong core items. Oh, and even without the early lethality from Collector, Flakked still maxes attack damage first, lethality second, and attack speed last. Now, studying high elo players is always a good idea if you want to become a better player yourself. So if you want to see a breakdown of another Challenger Aphelios player, just click the link on your screen right there.